make it this evening. I'll be filling in as chair, and I'll call the meeting to order. First up, we have approval of minutes from our June 2nd meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to look them over?
Yeah.
And, anyone have any changes, edits, comments?
I only had one little thing. Under the very first vote of approval of minutes from May 12th, I think the vote was 301 because Jeff Pete abstained.
Got it. Thank you.
And if no one has anything else, is there a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
So moved.
And a second.
Second?
Melissa, if you would.
Farrington,
Yes.
Zulik,
Yes.
Watson,
I wasn't here, so I abstain.
Gregory,
Abstain.
and Smith.
Yes. Okay, next up, notice of intent, 259 Turnpike Road. I gotta find the legal notices here. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, June 23rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 259 Turnpike Road, map 27, parcel 7, for the applicant and owner, Capital Group Properties, LLC. The project description is construction of a new single-family home, septic, and associated infrastructure. And I see Mitch here from Goddard. Good evening.
Good evening. How you doing?
Very good, thank you. Would you like to give us a quick overview of the project?
Sure. Yep. So for the record, my name is Mitch Maslenka. I'm a wetland scientist with Goddard Consulting, and I'm representing Bill DiPietri and Capital Group Properties tonight for their project at 259 Turnpike Road. They're proposing a single family house, which is actually going to have frontage off of Deerfoot Road. So I'll share the site plan so that you guys can see that.
You should now. Sorry, forgot to change the settings.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So I'll zoom in. There's a lot of details on the plan regarding the septic system. So as you can see, septic systems over here closer to Turnpike Road, which is at the bottom of this plan here, and then Deerfoot Road connects up here. So I'll zoom in a bit. So access to the site is going to be off of Deerfoot Road, up this driveway, and into this proposed house. And they're going to have their proposed septic tank and leaching field off to the side, closer to Turnpike Road. Over here where the septic is located, or going to be located, is a shrub area, partially within this utility easement over here, which is likely maintained and cut down from time to time. So there is some shrub land over in this general area. And as you get closer to this stone wall that comes through the center of the property, that's where the forest cover comes and the 100-foot buffer zone. So our wetlands are these triangle dots over here. Those are our wetland flags, and those traverse through the site here. I should have noted that this is a larger site. Portions of the existing site go over here, and they're proposing to subdivide it. Over here will be their existing commercial buildings and infrastructure, and then over here on the new lot, there's going to be this proposed lot line that's going to subdivide the lot and have their house over here. So off of our wetland line, which was approved in an ORAD in October of, I believe, it was October 28th of 2019. This wetland line was approved in an ORAD. So we've got our 20-foot buffer line here, going like that. And then we've got our 100-foot buffer zone line going like this. So within our 100-foot buffer is a tiny bit of our leaching field. We got our septic tank. portions of the driveway, and the entire house footprint is within the 100-foot buffer zone. We have disturbance within 22.7 feet. This is our section where we have our closest disturbance, is where the house is going to be constructed. I saw in LE's peer review letter that they were curious how we are going to protect the no disturb buffer during this construction. So we're going to have, along this entire erosion control barrier limit of work, we're going to have silt fence, hay bales or straw bales. And in this area, we're going to have some construction fence just to make sure no one is accessing into this 20-foot buffer here. So in areas that are going to be disturbed, like over here for the foundation drain and some grading, this is going to be proposed lawn area. This is also probably one of the more private areas of the property, since over here you're going to have clear view of Turnpike Road over where the septic leaching field is going to be and where the driveway is going to be. So along our 20-foot buffer disturbance zones, I talked to Bill, and we were going to address one of Melissa's comments in her review letter requesting some plantings along the 20-foot buffer. So we're going to put some plantings in there. I'll stop sharing my screen and show you what we were thinking for plantings. So right here, we're going to propose we're going to propose 4 pink flowering dogwood trees. So those are going to be planted in the sections where we're closest to the 20-foot no disturb zone. So one right here close to the foundation drain discharge point. And then over here, we're going to have 3 more around where we're going to have some disturbance right next to the 20-foot. These blue dots are going to be 2 proposed high bush blueberries. So we're getting some fruiting shrubs in there, and then we're also getting flowering tree species in there. So I could go through a bunch of the comments that we received from both Melissa and her agent letter and then from LE. So I put this little draft together, combining them. So comments 1 and 2, we're just going over some of the ORAD and approved plan dates. So no responses were needed on that. Wetland flags, discussion about if they were accurate in the field and on the plan. So LE, they presumably went out there, they realized some flags were down, so we're gonna hang up the flags prior to construction. That's a general condition in all order conditions anyway, so we're gonna need to comply with that anyway, so we'll do that. Comment number 4 was discussing the approval not required review. So we have an application into planning board and our applications on the hearing agenda for the 27th. So that's under review right now. Comment number 5 was talking about the Board of Health and the septic system, and their approvals are dependent on the A&R review. So that will come as we go through planning board. Comment 6, please confirm if the stone wall removal will end at the erosion control barrier. We can confirm the stone wall removal will end at the erosion control barrier. So only the stone wall within our limit of work is going to be disturbed. Comment 7 recommends the applicant reach out to planning board if a stone wall removal permit is required. So Capital Group Properties had advised me that the stone wall removal permit should only be required if the wall runs through the property, or it should not be required if the wall runs through the property. So we should be able to proceed without any stone wall removal permit because our stone wall goes right through the middle of the property. It's not at a property line.
Mitch, I think I was talking more about the one that's where the driveway is going to be cut.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll check into that then.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
I missed that one. I'll look into that. Okay. Comment 8, I recommend the applicant contacting the Department of Public Works for approval of the water service connection. So we reached out to DPW and they said there are water utilities available from Route 9 and Kenley Lane. Comment 9, while the stormwater management permit is not required, the commission recommends and requests that typical BMPs be implemented. So Capital Group isn't required to implement BMPs for the single family house construction under the Wetlands Protection Act or the bylaw. So we're going to ask if we may proceed without the BMP implementation. Comment number 10, please state what final ground cover conditions will entail. And this is where you recommended the native plantings. So again, here's our plan. Everything in the disturbance area will be loamed and seeded with grass. And then we're adding in our proposed plantings in the areas closest to the 20-foot buffer zone. And then on to LE's comments. They conducted the site visit. They were asking us to rehang the flags. So we'll rehang those flags. Comment 2. Those were just comments about dates for the ORADs and plans, so no response required on our half. Comment 3 was asking how we were going to protect the 20-foot buffer zone when we're working 2.7 feet away from it to put in the house foundation. So we were going to put the hay bales, silt fence, and construction fence along that tight line there. Comment number 4. They were asking about the foundation drain and if that was going to be an issue. So the foundation drain isn't going to have much water discharging out of it. So erosion likely won't be an issue. If you guys think there is going to be a huge issue, it probably wouldn't hurt to just put in a few little riprap stones, very small pad, just to let that water trickle out onto the rocks. But we're not anticipating any erosion coming from that foundation drain. And then comment number 5, DEP has not issued a file number, and that is true to today as well. So so that goes over all the comments I got from Melissa as well as Lucas Environmental. Feel free to ask me any questions, and we obviously can't close tonight because we got a DEP file number. So feel free to just ask questions and give me some recommendations if you guys have any.
Great, thank you, Mitch. So first up, Joe, before I turn it over to you, in your comments was something I'd like to hear your feedback on too. We saw in Mitch's presentation that the applicant is saying that the project is exempt from stormwater management standards because it's a single-family home, and that's typically true of single-family home construction, except where stormwater discharges to a critical area, and in this case, where we happen to be within an outstanding resource water. So my understanding has always been the increase in stormwater flow from the new impervious is a discharge to a critical area, and the standard for a single-family home is maximum extent practicable in addressing the stormwater management standards. So I'm curious if I have that correct. I'd love to get your input on that, as well as any comments that you have pursuant to Mitch's presentation.
Yeah, I believe you are correct. I believe you are correct on that with regard to the critical area. So that should be met to the extent practicable. I would need to double check on the regs to be sure on that, but I believe that is correct. With respect to the responses that were provided, I think I'd still a little apprehensive about being that close to the 20-foot no disturb with the foundation going in less than 3 feet. I mean, construction fencing certainly helps set it off, but are they confident they can get in a excavation for a foundation that close to that no disturb zone? One other item I should have mentioned in the review that I realized as I was looking through some of the photographs is that there's a lot of invasive species in the area, primarily the shrub area where they're proposing the septic. I think they should have a invasive species management plan during construction and post-construction for the filing. And in comment number 4, it was mentioned regarding the protection at the end of the foundation drain, but there's also a question in that comment regarding construction entrance to prevent any tracking of sediment onto this Deerfoot Road, onto the public way. I didn't see that on the site plan. And I think that pretty much covers my questions.
Thank you very much, Joe. Let's see, Melissa, you put together a comment letter for this also. Mitch went through your comments. Do you have anything further to add with respect to those comments?
I don't think so. I think a lot of it was just kind of going a little bit backwards, getting the A&R so you could get house numbers and the various other approvals.
Gotcha. Okay, so just to follow up on the comment that I made earlier, typically, historically, our practice has been, I should say, in situations like this with a single family house, really all we're looking for are the construction phase erosion controls that were mentioned in Joe's letter, I believe. No, excuse me, Melissa's letter. And then just infiltration of the appropriate stormwater quality volume. In this case, it's just 1 inch of runoff, which is usually pretty easily achieved just through infiltrating rooftop runoff. And the commission has historically accepted that as meeting the standard of the maximum extent practicable. With that, any comments from any of the commissioners? I think, Ross, I may put you on the spot a little bit, and would you care to? Joe has the concern about the excavation so close to the no touch zone, and with your experience, is that something is it possible to work that tight without running into problems?
So typically, wow. The footer is 3 times the thickness of the wall. So you have a 10-inch wall, you got a 30-inch footing. That's about right, maybe 2 feet from the face of the wall. So it's going to be proud another, 7 inches or something. And then the form guy needs 6 inches, and then whatever the wall tapers up from there.
Okay.
Generally we over dig at the top about 3 feet.
Okay.
That's tight.
Yeah.
I think they should just ask for a temporary waiver right now and be done with it. Accept that they're going to be in there and just be done.
It is hard to picture, not having some sort of impact within the 20 foot. But it seems like it's an impact that could be easily mitigated just through restoration.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Russ. Anybody else?
I guess one comment on the 2 feet 7 inches or whatever. Even after construction, can you even get like a lawnmower through there, or or is that going to be encroached on, by the homeowner continuously, being that close?
Yeah, I think so. What we typically do is, as with the plantings, we try to get some monumentation in on the 20-foot line. And in a situation like this, I think it's especially critical that we get something, especially in that area, pheno stakes or something that a homeowner is going to see so that they know this is a 20-foot no touch. You can't expand the lawn into the area. You can't, go clearing up vegetation and so forth. I would think at the very least, we would need some permanent monumentation in on this area. And that's something that every site where a 20-foot no touch zone is close to yards, we always ask for this monumentation. Thank you, Kevin. Anybody else? Okay, so now if there's anybody in the public who wishes to ask a question, raise a concern, or make a comment, please use the raise hand function in Zoom and we will promote you right up.
Not seeing any here.
Does not look like it. Okay, so obviously we can't close the hearing this evening. Mitch, I think we've given you some feedback. I don't think there's any super heavy lifting here. Hopefully, we'll be ready to wrap this up at our next hearing. Assuming that everything goes smoothly with planning board and so forth. But I think right now we're looking at a continuance to our next meeting.
Yep, that's fine with me. I just had one question. First
Of
off, I
course.
appreciate all the comments and recommendations. And but with the ISMP, Joe, were you just thinking within the limit of work, just making sure the areas that we disturb don't have any invasives coming back?
Yeah, both, generally both a construction phase plan so that you're not moving any invasives off-site or spreading them around the site. And then also possibly a post-construction monitoring and mitigation plan for invasives. It's pretty dense, as you probably are aware, in that shrubby area.
Yep, yeah, it certainly is. So,
Yeah.
okay. All right, thanks, Joe, for the clarification. And if we are going to ask for a waiver to work within the 20-foot buffer zone, we obviously don't need that much space within the 20-foot, and we're going to restore. Is there any paperwork that you want me to put together for that, or?
I'll email you the waiver request.
Okay, all right, I appreciate that, Melissa. All right, I think
Okay.
that's it for me.
Great, thank you. And I think
Let's make sure, excuse me, let's make sure that's for a temporary waiver or the waiver for temporary work within the 20-foot.
Thank you.
Yep, sounds good with me. All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we just need a motion to continue to our next meeting.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Yep.
Barrington,
Yes.
Zulik,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes,
All right.
thank you. Okay, next up. 14 Wood Street. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, June 23rd, 2022 at 7:10 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 14 Wood Street for the applicant and owner, Jack Merrill. The project description is the repair of a failed septic system, including the removal of existing system, installation of a new system, and related site grading. And I see Vito here. Good evening.
Good evening. Vito Colonna with Cornerstone Engineering. So I'll just share my screen to start off. Okay, so as you said, this is a septic repair. We're at 14 Wood Street. There are several wetland resources on this site. The existing house is right up here, kind of the bend as Wood kind of takes that turn. To the rear of us is the Sudbury River. So we have in blue here is the mean annual high water line. There's a fringe of BVW in the green right next to it. And then the 100-year floodplain reaches up just above those two resource areas there in red. Then we also have an offsite BVW over in this location. So the 100-foot buffers for the wetlands are the green here and here. We have the riverfront area, inner 100-foot is right there. And then the 100-foot offset to the BLSF under the bylaw is right through there. The existing septic system, it's a little tough to read because they're kind of on top of each other, but there's 2 trenches. One is here, one is right there. And there's an existing septic tank right here. So that's in failure. It does need to be replaced. So the only spot we could kind of balance being as far as we could from both resources and also out of the inner 100-foot riverfront was basically to replace it in the same location. So we're proposing to do a bed system right here, reuse the existing tank and just add a second tank. Right now, the regulations change. We need 2 compartments in the tank. This is a single compartment, so we're going to add a second tank to provide some additional settling and separation as a second compartment. We did test a little bit in other areas and didn't find suitable soils. Kind of tried down in this area to move it a little further away. Found refusal, large boulders. I'm not sure if it was ledge or not, but large boulders that weren't suitable down in this area. So really the only suitable spot we found is right in the middle. It kind of balances between all the wetland resources. Comments back from Lucas's office, and I only replied today. I did send a updated plan back, and some of the comments that are reflected on the plan was clarifying the 100-year floodplain. We added that in there. Before it was just called out by our notation. So we added that line in and added the 100-foot buffer to the offset right there. And we also clarified which type of erosion barrier we were proposing. There was some conflicting information. One of them had straw bales. So we just clarified that with the straw wattles and silt fence. Other than that, the plans really hadn't changed due to the comments. There were other ones in there that we could go over if we want to, but they didn't have effect on the actual plan content itself. That was my, I guess, brief presentation. I can turn it back over.
Great, thank you very much. Joe, do you want to really quickly just run through your comments?
Yeah, I think several were addressed with the revised plans as far as showing the flood zone and the buffer zone to the flood zone. As far as the wetland delineation flags, I didn't find any issues with the flagging either along the river or the other area off-site. I did note that one of the mean high water flags, flag number 1, was missing from the plan, but I don't think it really affects the site as far as where it's located. A couple other, small minor issues on Form 3, clerical issues and things like that. I had a question on the filing fee, whether or not the 1.5 times applied, under the bylaw, being work in a riverfront area. Although the work may be exempt, it's still in the riverfront area. I didn't know, what the commission has done in the past in those situations as far as the filing fee. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers the comments I had.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hey, Melissa, what has our policy been in the past? I'm drawing a blank on an exempt project within the riverfront area.
So, yeah, so Vito made a good point in his response back just to me with the revised comments, and that technically the septic system is outside of the other buffer zone, so it's only within the riverfront. So the 1.5 times fee is if it's riverfront in another resource area. So they are all set on that aspect.
Okay, great. And we haven't gone through comments from the commission and the public yet, but do we stand, barring any showstoppers there? It sounds like we would conceivably, no plan updates are necessary. It sounds like there was a typo or two on the application potentially, but it sounds fairly de minimis. Are we going to require, do we need a revision on that in order to move forward?
I set on my end administratively for everything that we need. If it's just I think it's just one page that maybe just needs to say Southborough, and I can definitely get that from Vito as a clerical update after the fact.
Okay, great. I just wanted to just make sure that we would be able to move forward if all looks well. So with that, are there any comments, questions, or concerns from the commission? I'm not hearing any. Is there anyone in the public here this evening who wishes to offer a question or comment on this project? If so, please use the raise hand function and we'll bring you up.
Not seeing any.
Okay. So with that, it looks like we're ready to close the hearing, and it sounds like, Melissa, it looks like we're just looking at standard conditions here. So we'll even be able to vote on conditions at the end of the evening. Mm-hmm. Would someone like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Move we close the public hearing. Yeah.
Thank you. And a second.
Second.
Thank you.
All right. Farrington,
Yes.
Zulik,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All right. So we can come back and issue it at the end.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Vito.
you, Vito. Have a good night. Okay. Let's see, what time do we have here? All right, we're doing well. Next up, continued notice, continued ANRAD. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a continued public hearing on Thursday, June 23rd, 2022 at 7:20 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for a project located at 250 Turnpike Road, map 27, lot 2A, for the applicant David Ferris, Ferris Development Group. The project description is confirmation of resource area boundaries. I see a couple of folks here.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tom Schutz. I am a wetland scientist with Goddard Consulting here on behalf of the applicant Dave Ferris and Ferris Development Group. We also have Matt Russell with us, who is on the applicant's team. I think the last time that we were in front of you, Ellie had issued comments and we were just kind of briefly giving a background information on the project. And then we were addressing the comments after because we did receive the comments fairly soon before the actual hearing itself. So we have gone ahead and addressed all the comments in the initial letter from LE. And tonight we'd like to show all the revisements to the plan, and then also address some further comments from LE that we haven't sent in a formal letter at this point. So if I could share my screen. All right. So just a background information for those that weren't here last time, or just kind of a brief touch up. It was quite a while ago. This is 250 Turnpike Road. On site, we have a large industrial building, which is right here. We have a large bordering vegetated wetland system that is on the northwest and kind of western portion of the site. We also have this large section of bordering vegetated wetland with an interior intermittent stream. And we also have a large upland section down here. On our initial application, we did not have this section of bordering vegetated wetland. There's also an interior stream on this. This has now been delineated in the field and is now shown on the plans. There was a discrepancy with the labeling of these on the plan, so we are going to have to make a change here. This was labeled in the field as GCC 1 through 20, and as you can see there, GCC or GCB 1 through 20. There's also a discrepancy with the way these are labeled here. Joe had noted that I believe it was GCC C11 was not shown in the correct spot. And I do agree with that. I believe that this B14 is actually that flag, and this numbering sequence is just off a bit. So if we go back to our comments here, I believe Joe and I agree on everything that is not highlighted at this point, and we will move down to this. We revised a series of flags as indicated in Ellie's response to us, and we'll continue down here. This was what I just spoke about, how the GC11 flag, 11-1 is actually this flag right here, B14. So the numbering sequence is just off. So we will have to resubmit new plans to fix that discrepancy. Ellie also asked us to look into vernal pool species, as he had seen tadpoles in what we call this western detention basin. We did go out into the field and we did find wood frog egg masses. We found a total of 4 of them in this detention basin. However, we don't believe that is a vernal pool. It may have vernal pool habitat, but it is dried up in the field as of this point. If we look down at some of these photographs, this is what it looks like today. This was taken this week. You can see that it is completely dry. While there is some habitat, this didn't. We don't believe that this would support vernal pool species. So yeah, we did find 4 egg masses, however, in that vernal pool. We'd also like to address, we sent it in our first response letter about these 2 detention basins and how they were non-jurisdictional. In our response letters, we had that there are 2 catch basins, one located right here, and it feeds 2 pipes, which are hard to see on this plan itself. But one of the pipes is located right here, and another pipe is located right here, and they are functional and they do catch water and then drain it into the basin. We also have an additional catch basin, which is located right here, which feeds this pipe at this point. The entire slope of this section is riprap and not natural. It's an armored bank and was built in 1989. We just have some photos of that. If I can just find that. We have some photos of that as well, just for the commission to see if anybody hadn't been out there. So this catch basin was that one in the eastern portion of the site, and you can almost see one of the wetland flags down in there. It's right here. This is one of the wetland flags that we'll see in the next photo. That's this wetland flag here with this pipe, which is dispensing water from that catch basin. As we move along, we can see the riprap slope of this detention basin here and more wetland flags as we continue. This is the western catch basin in that large parking lot that I just spoke about. As we continue down, here is another one of the pipes that is fed by this catch basin here. And you can note that there is still all riprap throughout this area, and it's not a naturalized area. Finally, this is the 3rd pipe that is discharging water. You can see it's actively discharging water into the detention basin, where it will be discharged out of the detention basin on the eastern border of it. So I'd like to open it up to any questions from the commission and answer any general questions that we can address at the next hearing, because then we're going to have to make some site revision plans at this point. But I'd like to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Tom. First, I'd like to hear from Joe, if we could. In particular, I'm interested, Joe, in the status of the 2 ponds. It certainly, from the pictures, doesn't look like a lot of maintenance work has taken place through the years. This is an issue we've wrestled with in the past, but I'd love to hear your input on that and the rest of the responses to your comments.
Sure. Just going back relative to the delineation, as was stated, I think we're in agreement with all the revisions that were made, except for the questions on the C line, the new flagging there that need to be resolved. With respect to the vernal pool habitat. The basin may be dry, but we're also in a declared level 2 drought right now. So I don't know that it's necessarily typical conditions for that pool to be dry at this time of year. Having found the 4 egg masses, wood frog egg masses, I think indicates it certainly does provide some level of vernal pool habitat. In maybe a more normal year, there may still be water in that pool. With respect to your question on the status of those pools, we were looking for some additional information on how those pools meet the requirements to be exempted, if that's in fact what is being requested from being exempted under the Wetlands Protection Act as being considered a jurisdictional wetland. They were apparently constructed sometime around 1989, and they need to demonstrate that there's been some maintenance or improvement done to those pools in order to meet the exemptions or the exemption from being considered a resource area. So we were just looking for some additional information on construction and any maintenance that might have occurred on those basins. And let's see. I think for the most part, the other comments that we had have been addressed.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Yep.
Are there any questions or comments from the commission? Anybody? Okay. Before I forget, is there anybody here with us tonight from the public who wishes to offer questions or comments? If so, please use the raise hand function and we'll bring you up.
So no.
Thank you. So, Tom, it sounds like we still don't have, evidence of maintenance of these 2 ponds. This is, I think, a pretty important element of the ANRAD, obviously, is to settle the jurisdictional status of these. I will say, from just looking at the pictures, there are trees 6 inches in diameter growing out of them. We've got to get this resolved one way or the other. And one thing that would be helpful is if there are records of maintenance that's taken place, through the years. We really need to get a hold of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt and Dave, sorry, that was really echoey. But Matt and Dave are actively looking from the previous owner to see if we have any of those maintenance records. It's just been a little bit of a hassle trying to get a hold of the previous owner. So we are actively looking for those. We don't currently have them, but we are actively looking.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, in the absence of that, I think we are looking at a continuance to our next hearing, where hopefully we can make some headway on this and get it closed. Does anyone have anything further to add? Any questions or comments? And if not, I guess we're looking for a motion to continue to our next hearing. Would someone like to make the motion?
So move.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Farrington,
Yes.
Dulick,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All set.
But thank you very much. And have a good night. Okay, next up, 7:30. Continued stormwater management permit and NOI. In accordance with the provisions of the Southborough Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaw, Southborough Zoning Code, Chapter 174, Section 13.5, Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, Southborough Conservation Commission will hold a continued public hearing on Thursday, June 23rd, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting on the petition of CMJ Ventures LLC for construction of warehouse space, salt shed, and other site improvements at 200 Turnpike Road, map 28, lot 3C. We have,
They've asked for a continuance. They haven't finished the revised plans yet.
oh, okay. In that case, would somebody like to make a motion to continue this to our next hearing?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Farrington,
Yes.
Zulik,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, and looking at our meeting notes, it looks like all certificates of compliance are being continued.
Yes, and the reason for this, they're very minor. They're just some inspection ports that they need to locate and uncover. There's some debris and kind of yard waste behind 10 or 12 in the open space that just needs to be picked up. And on one of them, there was supposed to be some additional mitigation for stormwater that I didn't appear to be there. And also on one of the properties, they were putting in a single car garage. So that was in the works that needed to be updated for the site plan. So Vito is going to be working on those, and hopefully for the next meeting, those will come full circle.
Fantastic. So that puts us at 84 Main Street, discussion and project changes and updates. It sounds like, are we still waiting on the planting plan?
We are still waiting on the planting plan. If we wanted to just go quickly, go through the at least draft of the administrative amendment, I can share that. My recommendation would be probably to wait until the next meeting to vote on this, only because I think it would be important to reference that planting plan within this document. So what we have is that the existing drain shall be disconnected and that Coltech units going in, so there's no direct discharge into the Sudbury Reservoir. Any further invasive species management for the Japanese knotweed shall be done by hand removal only, and only in the rip-drop area, which was the original extent. I did put in here if there's more than a 15% dominance, because it is such a wide swath of area, that they need to come back to the commission just for mainly erosion control, since it is on the bank of the reservoir. So that number can change, or we can take it out if there's, something that's not sitting right with you. This is a carryover from the previous administrative amendment about the invasive removal, which we have not gotten an official report from last year. And then the bounds are to be set along the property line, and that's the demarcation for where the native wildflowers are. And then straight native species shall be planted within the areas depicted on the plan that Peter showed us at the last meeting. And then I just have this in here for now, but I would like the final vote to include the switch from this to, approving an actual plan with a title and date. And I kind of explained the offset and allowing the non-native ornamental plants because of the native pollinator plants, and kind of putting it back to the initiative of the Open Space Preservation Commission. And then that the wildflower area shall be maintained in perpetuity. Mix could be changes. If it dies, it needs to be reseeded. This is our a normal condition within our order, but I did want to highlight it here because last time I was there, I did kind of get a feeling that there was some other fertilizer going on. And then just if there's an extension before the COC to have this recorded with it, just so there's a record. But otherwise, if the COC is issued before an extension, then we just kind of reiterate what is really going to be in perpetuity. And for COCs, I've been attaching the as-built plan at the end of the COC that gets recorded. And if there's an operation and maintenance plan, I do that as well. So it'd be the same thing, but more of a definitive list of what the ongoing conditions are, just to make it very clear. This was something that I put in after my discussion with Michael Wychan on the site and talking about, it's a little bit difficult for him to plan for the plants around this water feature, which is understandable because the water level is very variable. So the homeowner does, or the property owner does, have an artesian well on the property. So they did mention, maybe filling the pond to have it at a certain level, kind of consistently throughout the work within the floodplain. So I did put this in here. It's something we can talk about if you would like to. But I think that's kind of important to still meet the intent of the original approval. And then just kind of a general statement about any kind of future violations, and kind of really, since this is kind of like the third iteration that we've kind of gone around with this, that a future violation under the current ownership or management on this property, then, we kind of reserve the right to go kind of very quickly to an administrative hearing, if we decide to go that way. So just kind of a reminder, it's not saying we have to, but just kind of putting it out there that this is a history and that we do have enforcement capabilities. So is there, yeah.
It's far more extensive than in my mind I was thinking it would be. I realize there's a lot there, and thank you for putting all the time into it.
Mhm.
One thing I would add to the pond and trying to artificially, enforce a water level or whatever, that pond actually sits in an easement that was negotiated with the commission, years ago at this point. But the how does it go? I just want to make sure I get this right. Work can be done within this easement, but it has to be for drainage purposes. And that's why the pond was ultimately, it was okay for the pond to end up there, because as you say, it's used for, peak flow mitigation and compensatory flood storage. And those, from a regulatory standpoint, those are its primary functions. And that needs to continue to be the case, to be in compliance, with the easement. So just to sort of add to what you said.
Yeah, I'll look at that specific language and kind of tweak that number 13 a little bit, just to kind of clarify that too.
Any comments, questions, additions from anybody on the commission?
If there's any questions from the newer members kind of on the history of this project, even if you think of it afterwards, feel free to reach out, because there's plenty of documents on it, so we can go through kind of the changes that have happened.
Yeah, and I think we have said in the past, but just in case, this is a formal amendment to an order of conditions is actually a pretty extensive process. And for things that aren't hugely impactful, we can do an administrative amendment, which we can do simply by, holding a hearing and conducting a vote. And so that's what that's what we're doing in this situation. A little more extensive than they tend to be, but only in the number of items, not in the overall impact, I would say.
Yep.
Okay, so there are a couple of changes that you're going to make before we ultimately vote on it. I will say it looks fantastic. Thanks again for putting all that work into it.
You're welcome. Yeah, I think, just the kind of downside of sometimes doing the administrative amendments, if there's more than one, you want to make sure you keep them all up to date. So because we had one for the invasive removal, we're kind of dealing with the plantings more so now. I wanted to make sure there was one kind of document that really made sure that we were up to the current standards. So if anyone thinks of anything in between the next meeting, just shoot me an email, phone call, and we can work it in here.
Fantastic. Okay, next up on the agenda is the Chestnut Hill Farm Management Plan. We had got some more, I don't know if anyone's had the chance to read it, some more input from Open Space. And a couple of things that I had been unaware of. Well, I was aware of the bobolinks. In fact, my daughters and I have seen them a couple of years ago at this point. But it's funny, during the right time of the year, boy, you see them flying around in that field. So I forget where the information came from that they've nearly or maybe completely been displaced on the site. It sounds like from grazing activities. So I think at the very least we should try to get an explanation on this and see what's going on. It sounds like Mr. Beals, Whit Beals, has been somewhat involved in this, with his history with the site and being a neighbor. Hopefully, when we discuss this at our next meeting, he'll be able to attend to give us some information on what's going on. I understand he may be able to help us. And then the other thing that they pointed out was that the parking lot lights, for some reason, they're just left on all night long.
So that fixed this afternoon. I did
Great.
touch base with DA Hayden very quickly before the meeting. She's actually on vacation, or she's out. I don't know if she's on vacation, but the end of this week and next week. But we did touch base really quickly because I sent her the open space letter. So she sent probably Mike Francis over to look at the lights really quickly, and they found that the electrician put the lights on a timer that didn't set off, and they didn't realize that. So they have disconnected the timer and shut the lights off. So they will only be turning them on during nighttime events now.
Fantastic, great news. That's
And they'll
best kind of problem. Yeah.
yes, and they're hoping to get the management plan to us next week once she's back, and are going to have that internal discussion about the comments regarding the bobolinks. So we'll definitely be getting a response about those.
Fantastic. And okay, yeah. So hopefully we can have potentially even somebody from Open Space, as well as it would be wonderful if Mr. Beals was able to attend also. We'll see what we can do there.
Okay.
Before we move along, anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns about Chestnut Hill Farm and the management plan?
Just a question about the bobolinks. Where are they located on the property? Or where were they located on the property? I guess it's better.
I don't know the name of the field, but when you walk in, you sort of take a left and go up the main drag there, and they're off in the large areas off to the right, I believe. Correct, Melissa?
Let me pull up. Might be easier if I pull up the
Yeah.
trail real quick. Hold on. Sorry, guys, my computer's moving slow. Like my brain today, but not as bad. All right. Just trying to find the most recent trail map. I can't find anything. All right. So the bobolinks, this is the bobolink trail. So they're in this area here, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Okay, I thought geez, like I said, it was a few years ago. I recall them being somewhere else, but.
Or maybe, oh no, grassland habitat and pasture.
Okay.
This one,
Okay.
yeah, okay, we're all right.
Great,
Yep, so this kind of larger area.
okay,
And this is the trailhead parking, just for
yes,
kind of just head in. It's basically just all this area to the left as you kind of head in the main trail from the trailhead parking.
okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It'll give me an excuse to get out of the house and maybe wander around
nice-
there a little bit.
It's a nice set of trail systems. Like, honestly, if you get a good pace going, I mean, you could probably do the whole property in 40 minutes. The trails, at least, yeah, they're not long, so it's a nice one to do when you just need a little break.
Takes like 2.5 hours if you have kids with you, though. So just so you're aware.
That's true.
Yeah, it's
Especially now with
especially-
all the goats. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Okay. Anything else on this topic, on Chestnut Hill Farm? Okay. Revised materials submission policy.
So this is something I was talking to Russ about, and it's something that the commission has had in the past, but hasn't really implemented very much. And it's really for kind of the larger revised materials, and not saying that we won't hear them, at the public hearing, but at least kind of setting the precedent that, you really should be having materials in a week before the meeting, especially if you kind of already have your review from the last meeting. You have 2 weeks to get it done. So the commission and our staff and Lucas has a week to review before the meeting. And if it's kind of within that time frame, then we reserve the right to continue so that we can review the information. We've been getting a lot of either last minute revisions, from things that wasn't waiting on peer review comments from myself, from Lucas, or for Fuss and O'Neill. Been getting them very close to the meeting, and it's kind of taken a toll sometimes on just, sometimes I see your eyes glaze over, and that's okay. Mine glaze over too. It's just sometimes a lot of information at once. So kind of want to get your feel on putting something like this, just as a policy on the Conservation Commission website when we talk about our meeting dates and deadlines. So it's just, and revised materials are required to be submitted in hard copy and digital format. That's a big thing that I've been struggling with, because they'll email it, but not get me the hard copies, which are still physically required. So that's kind of where this stems from.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I will say my experience has been, even with some surrounding towns, the deadline will be 7 or 10 days is a fairly common one before the meeting. And if they're not in 10 days before the meeting,
They don't even
then
hear it.
that's it. There's no flexibility. We are unique in offering this kind of flexibility. It makes it a little more difficult for us sometimes, but I'm sort of proud that we do that, especially for some smaller projects.
Yeah.
If we can, accommodate it, that's great. But I think the policy is wise. I think we should have it for the larger projects where we get a huge slug of information.
Yeah.
Where we just need time to process.
Yeah, because I think the perfect example tonight was 14 Wood Street. It was a septic system, mostly exempt under the Wetlands Protection Act. It's a failed system, very minor modifications. And yeah, like Ben said, this isn't to stop that productive flow, because I agree. I like getting things, off the agenda when we can. It helps me out. It helps you guys out. But for the bigger projects, the commercial projects is really what this is coming for, or applying to.
Okay. Do we need a vote on this, or just a general?
If you are willing to vote, or if you wanted to wait until different members are here, that's fine. But otherwise, it's a pretty basic policy, but a vote of the commission would be wise.
Okay. I don't feel that this is controversial enough that we necessarily need to wait another meeting. I feel pretty comfortable in saying that Mark, I think would agree also. So unless anyone doesn't feel that we should take a vote on this, in which case please do speak up. But otherwise, if someone would like to make a motion, we can vote on it and get it taken care of right now.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Farrington,
Yes.
Zulik,
Yes.
Watson,
Yeah.
Gregory,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. And SMB bylaw in the outcomes of the survey.
All right, so I am gonna, just kind of quickly go over. These are some of the responses that I received from the questions that I sent out. So it's pretty clear we're looking for a fee for amendment requests. after the fact filings and if a COC is expired. So I will start working on those and maybe looking at some other towns or just kind of following what we do in the wetlands bylaw. I'm proposing a couple numbers for that for the next meeting. We were pretty split on requiring the SMP permit for roadway and reclamation paving, with the one caveat that I was thinking after one of the responses, and kind of me and Liz were talking today going over this, is that, you know, maybe following the kind of Wetlands Protection Act regulations, and that if, as long as they're keeping the roadway the same width and just repaving in the same area, then not requiring an SMP. But if it contains roadway widening or other additional upgrades, then that would qualify as an SMP. So what are maybe some initial thoughts on that one, since we were so split on that?
I guess the question then is how do we calculate the area? Is it just based on the increase, or does it do we then look at the overall area of work?
I think with roadway projects, you know, it may not be a physical number, but just if they are expanding the width of the roadway in any capacity, maybe that's when it requires the SMP. Does that make sense? Because it may not necessarily require a cumulative number, you know, to demonstrate that they're widening. And, you know, if it's maybe a 10-foot section that they're only going a foot, then that might be something that might be exempted. But if it's a larger kind of actual roadway widening project, then that would probably need to be covered under the stormwater permit.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was thinking about. Like, you know, if they're, you know, widening the radius on a corner or something, or whatever, you know, like all these little edge cases. I think if we could get the language right, so that it is actual roadway widening.
Yeah, so maybe I'll talk with the DPW kind of about some of the differences in their terminology for projects and see if that might help us out a little bit more.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, because that's a good thought. I didn't even think of kind of, you know, fixing sight lines and corners and things like that. All right. So permit threshold for major permits. Still kind of split, but mostly around the 1 acre part. Let me just see if there was any comments. Oh, that was cute. Nope, no comments. So I think it's kind of in between the 1 acre, 40,000 square feet. I know a couple people said, you know, round numbers are great. So that's why they kind of liked the 40,000, but does anyone else have any kind of strong opinions? So the major, again, would be a full SMP application, public hearing, abutter notification, etc. And also remembering that common developments are now included, so it's not lot by lot in a lot of circumstances. Not hearing anything, so maybe we'll stick with the 1 acre for now. And if we need to come back to it as we kind of review a little bit more, then we will. So for minor permits, I think there was some comments on this one and they're not showing up. So minor permits, I think the other comments was mostly just about, you know, allowing staff to approve, you know, because a lot of the minor requirements, you know, are very minor in nature, very common sense and part of the normal routine now. So having maybe that ½ acre to 1 acre is okay because it's a lot easier. But any thoughts maybe to those who commented in the other section of what you were thinking? No? Okay. So I think maybe I'll keep the ½ acre to 1 acre still. That sounds consistent. All right. We were all pretty sold in allowing the 90-day deadline. I think the 2 days to review. I think the other comment was about the clock starting after our first public hearing, which I don't think we can do because that's a zoning code regulation with the 90 days and when it starts. But there is a capacity of when the 90 days start in terms of a completeness review. So that does get a little tricky there. But so we'll add in some language about that. So we're not giving any fees back. It's very clear. If they withdraw, we are keeping them. So I'll remove that just brief language in the bylaw that's there right now. Very solid about if after one extension, if they come back, if they need to update their design, they would need to. So this would probably be applicable to at least 2 permits, I think, that have been kind of on the horizon that we've been extending. So kind of keeping that in mind, but very favorable to do that. So I will work on that language or keep that language in there. And then we're taking out all the administrative stuff. That's pretty solid. And then we were pretty split still on increasing the amount of pervious surfaces more than 50% of the area of a parcel or lot. When me and Liz were talking today, she also brought up a good point of this may also unintentionally hit some of those half-acre lots, because they are so small. A house is, a house and a driveway could put you pretty close to that. And that's kind of a normal use, but on the flip side, a lot of those, what used to be that residential C district is mostly built out except for a couple lots. So, maybe I can check to see if there are any smaller lots that maybe this would impact, or if there's some maybe language that we can put in there about the residential C district and some exemptions regarding that. Does anyone have any thoughts or hard feelings about this 50%?
Yeah, my comment was just I didn't want to disproportionately impact what could potentially be kind of lower income families versus higher income families based on lot size. So trying to balance economic status with conservation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That was, in fact, that was the impetus for doing this whole major minor distinction, because before it was, one of the thresholds was disturbing 50% of the lot or more. And it was frankly discriminatory towards, there's some lots in the southern part of town that are, like 5,000 square feet. I mean, I was joking, but you could practically rototill your garden and hit the threshold. So we're trying to eliminate that unfairness.
What if we just added any activity that will increase, for lots, only on lots an acre and larger?
That sounds good.
Because then that would mean that you have 50% impervious, which would be a full half acre on a 1 acre lot.
Yeah.
Which even for sites that disturb an acre, the actual house lot, the actual impervious is still below that 50%. So that would still exempt a lot of those true single house lots that people might be building themselves.
I kind of like that. And I think sort of in support of that, what I would also say is if somebody is turning, if they're not subject to the Wetlands Protection Act and they're turning half of their 1 acre lot or larger impervious, the drainage implications for neighbors and folks downstream are actually pretty substantial. And I think, I feel like it would be appropriate for us to, have some sort of standards so that we're not flooding people out.
Okay. So I'll put in that just about it only being applying to properties that are an acre or larger. All right, so pretty clear that we shouldn't require a percentage of plantings be native under the SMP, and we should be encouraging but not requiring nature-based solutions. So I'll kind of write up I'll take some kind of standard language from the probably the MVP page and such about their bylaw revisions and what they recommend. And kind of split between encourage and require. And I think most of this comes with, encourage on the individual lots, but maybe require more so on the subdivisions. Because we kind of see the most impact with clearing and grubbing on those subdivisions because they clear cut kind of a more fuller area for all the lots all together. While single family, house lots, they usually clear for the driveway, they clear for the septic, the house, and kind of a smaller lawn area. But in subdivisions, you don't have the tree line that stays between the houses. So, maybe putting in some language about at least, requiring some sort of analysis of how they, tried to minimize clearing and grubbing, for larger projects. Any thoughts about that either way? Do we like the requiring on subdivision end, if we phrase it that way? Or if we specify maybe subdivisions 5 lots and more or something like that, if we have a number to it, that usually means that it's a larger area. Or do we just only want to encourage? I know it's a hard thought.
I think I'm still in the encourage camp just because of the difficulty in crafting a sort of one size fits all standard. I'm having trouble getting my mind wrapped around that.
All right. If for the next meeting, maybe I came up with some potential language of what kind of that would sound like, would that be amenable to you guys?
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, for subdivisions. Okay. Require. All right, so I will do that. And then subdivisions for 12, keeping it simple, and adding more time for the agent to review, and then talking more about that paving. If shoulders aren't widened, etc., then maybe it's just notification to the commission. And then, that seems to be the gist of it. So we're pretty clear on, I think the simpler items in terms of the thresholds and kind of the administrative requirements. So I'll put together some potential language on both ends, both encouraging and requiring for the different, sections that we talked about tonight, and anything else that we might be a little flipped about. So like the 50% impervious and the roadway question. And I will try and put those updates in the regs for the next meeting. And is there anything else that you guys thought of while going through the survey or any other documentation that you want me to kind of help draft or put out there for discussion? No? All right. That's all I got for the bylaw then.
All right. Thank you very much. Next up, conservation scientist agent report.
Awesome. So there isn't too many active sites going on, the same projects. We have Lorenzo Drive off Mount Vickery. We still have the U-Haul on Turnpike, 68 Turnpike when they were putting the above ground detention to underground is almost done. I think they just have some final pavement work to do. But other than that, there might have been, if you guys are on, my Southborough or social media, Ferris Group, who we also discussed tonight for 250 Turnpike, that ANRAD, they've kind of released press release, et cetera. It was in the paper that they plan to move forward in that lower portion of that 250 Turnpike off Parkerville as a some sort of 40B project, whether I think I read that it was going to be apartments. So that should be coming down the line. Right now, They're only focusing, and we had a pre-application meeting, mostly through the planning board side, because that existing building at 250 is going to turn into a storage facility. So there's only going to be interior work to the building. They might have to patch pieces of the pavement, but there won't be any actual physical work on the site of the existing facility at 250 Turnpike. So I'm sure that will come down the line, but just to give you a heads up, I think that's the only one that I really know about. And then in terms of the Breakneck Hill dump, I did get the task authorization signed from Mark Purple. So I've sent that off to TRC, our consultants, and they are starting the drafting of the notice of intent. We won't be able, just because I didn't get it from Mark soon enough, we won't be able to make it for the next meeting because the deadline's next week, and even with some wiggle room of kind of getting stuff in, didn't quite work. So they're hoping to be in front of us for August 4th. So hopefully, we can get that completed by the end of August, if we need to take 2 or 3 meetings, and then the test pittings will be done right afterwards. And that will kind of put us maybe about a month behind schedule, but still within our allowed deadline. So we're still on track and making progress and keeping DEP on the loop. Does anyone have any other questions about the dump? I know there's been some talk about it online, so I want to make sure everyone knows what's going on. All right. Update on administrative assistant. So unfortunately, Kelly, who was the shared admin that we had from zoning and conservation, has left. She just had, change of life at home. So we did post the job, and I believe that we've gotten a number of applicants. So I think myself, the assistant town administrator and building commissioner, will be sitting down probably early next week and reviewing those applications. So hopefully we can get them started as soon as possible. So there's good on that front. And I think it will be nice having someone starting from zero, because this is such a newer position and adding conservation. So I think ironically having a new person starting, as a baseline will actually make it move a little bit smoother than the transition has been. So that's actually a plus for me. Discussion of next meeting, we still can be remote because it's the very last day. But after that, plan on being in person. We need to have the chairman and a majority or the quorum of the commissioners in person. If you're going to be remote, there's a form that you can fill out, and Mark, just as the chair, has to approve it. That's basically what the protocol was before COVID. If any of that changes, I know the House and Senate is trying to get the bill passed to continue remote meetings. So if any of that changes, I'll keep you updated about that.
And what meeting did you say it's returned to face-to-face?
That'll be the first meeting in August. So I think August 2nd. Yep. So our July 14th meeting, the remote meetings ends July 15th. So we can hit just under the deadline for the 14th. So our very next one, but after that will be in person unless a bill gets passed in the great legislature of Massachusetts. And otherwise, sad to say, this is Judith's last meeting. It is Jeff's too, but he is traveling for work, so we even missed his last one. I want to say thank you to Judith. She's been a huge help to me in the office. I know she's done an incredible amount of work on the master plan committee and writing the master plan. So she's been a great resource on the technical side and writing bylaws and regulations. So I want to thank her for that. She's always, ready to help me if I need a buddy to go on a site visit or anything like that. So thank you, Judith, for volunteering all this time, and we won't leave you alone in the future because I know where you are.
Thank you. It's been a blast. It's been really great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And once we are back in person, I would love to have another little party again, like we did a couple years ago, because we did have a few members leave us. So we have Jeff and Judith and Carl and Sherry. So I'd love to have an opportunity to have them back, have a little cake and, fun times before a meeting. So we'll keep an eye on that, determine when everyone has a little free moment, when everyone's not traveling. And just thank you Judith and Jeff, even though he's not here, he did a lot, doing the vernal pool certification. Both him and his wife have been great doing that. So we're going to lose some great members, but we hope that they stick around for just, normal town life.
Thank you very much, Judith. And Melissa's right. You put a phenomenal amount of work into the master plan. And, that work is going to help the community forward for the next 10 years. Thank you very much for investing all that effort. It's really appreciated.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good. Well, otherwise for tonight, we just have the issuance of 14 Wood Street. And that was our standard special condition. So really nothing to look over unless you guys had anything else you wanted to talk about.
If no one has anything, I think we're just looking for a motion to issue an order of conditions with our standard set of conditions.
So moved. The last one.
Last one.
And is there a second?
Second,
All right. Farrington,
Yes.
Zulik,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Gregory,
yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's all I have for tonight.
All right. Well, there is one last motion that we need. And Judith, I'd like to offer you the honors. A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second,
All right. Farrington,
Yes.
Zulik,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Gregory,
yes.
and Smith.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone.